Hey, welcome to Aquamunda Productions podcast. We are Group 3 from 11 Oldcorne, Ateneo de Davao University Senior High School. And we are here today to talk about SDG number 6, clean water and sanitation, in both global context and national context. That means Philippines. So, first and foremost, let me introduce myself. I am your host, Nathan Jeff B. Rebellia, and here are my two co-hosts, Ivan.
Hi, I'm Urban Malkan Mitimbang, and this is Milord, our other co-host. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lord Julian Humawi, your other co-host. And for our guests, first we have Angeline.
Hi everyone, I'm Angeline Bacani.
Second guest that we have is all the way to my far right, Bea.
Hi everyone, I am Diana Regno.
Last but not least, Resha.
Hi everyone, I'm Rasha Cañete.
All right. Wonderful introductions by our guests and my co-hosts. First and foremost, let us introduce, or if you have not known yet, what SDG 6 is. First, we'll explain what are its goals, and what is it really. So, first and foremost, let's call upon our first special guest, Resha. What is the goals of SDG number 6, or what are some goals that you know?
The goals is to achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all.
Very nice, very nice. Let's say, how about you, Ange? What are some goals that you know regarding SDG number 6?
Well, one of its goals is to improve water quality by reducing pollution, eliminating dumping, and minimizing release of hazardous chemicals and materials, having the portion of untreated wastewater and substantially increasing recycling and safe reuse globally.
All right, I like that point. I think co-hosts Ibn and Millard. I think we're gonna talk about that later, right? It's one of our
Yeah.
agendas. All right. Last but not the least, let's call upon our last guest, Bea. What are some goals that you know about SDG number 6?
So another goal I know is by 2030, achieve access to adequate and equitable sanitation and hygiene for all, and open differentiation, paying special attention to the needs of women and girls and those in vulnerable situations.
All right. I like that. I like that. So here are some goals of the SDG number 6, and hopefully you've listened to them and understood and absorbed them well. Let's go on to our co-hosts, Ibn and Milord. What can you say is our agenda for today, or what are objectives for today? What are we going to talk about today regarding SDG
Um,
number 6?
we will be explaining or expanding on why water is very essential. As all of you may know, we drink it every day, uh, and how much it is more than just for drinking. It's it's around us in our way of life, and
True.
safe water is a basic human right, as
True.
everyone agrees here. However, not everyone in the world has access to clean water, unfortunately.
Why is that so? Um,
Around around 2.2, I believe, 2.2 billion people don't have access to safe drinkable water, and that's very unfortunate.
that's a very big number, right? Right, Milord. Right, guys.
Yeah.
2.2 billion is, I think, at least one fourth of our population. If I'm not wrong, estimated population of our world, of our Earth right now, is 7.5 billion, right? And 2.2 billion is, at least like one fourth, or like almost to that. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of people who does not have access to clean water, or have not access to
Mm,
safe drinking water, right? Like, that's a big number to wrap our head around, and that's really concerning, and really one of the reasons why we should really talk about SDG number
Russia,
6, and
do you have any thoughts on this?
you know
The lack of access to clean water and sanitation is particularly prevalent in developing countries, especially world ones.
That is
What
true.
really like in world ones you mean by like third world countries, right? So can you expound further, please, on like what does it mean on these third world countries being the most affected?
In many of these countries, people have to walk long distances to access water sources, which are from often contaminated. And also, many people do not have proper sanitation facilities, which can lead to the spread of diseases.
Agree. What can you say
Hmm.
about this, Milord?
I mean, there's probably, poor governance going on here. That's why these people in the third world countries experience these problems. And
Agree.
yeah, there is a lack of implementation when it comes to building water systems, especially in
Agree.
secluded areas. Not to mention, in Africa, in
Agree.
Cameroon specifically,
Cameron.
I believe students specifically, they do not attend classes because they don't have access to safe drinking water. And that's very alarming.
That's very
So,
concerning, right?
yeah, the government plays a big factor here.
I don't know where it was, but isn't there like a place where they have to boil water so that it kills the bacteria and they have to drink it like that?
Yeah, I
Oh,
I
think
can't
yeah.
remember from
so.
where.
In some places they really do that, because as Milord have said and as Risha have said, there really is a lack of proper sanitation facilities and access to clean water and it water being a basic necessity for us in our survival with the amount of billions of people who does not have access to safe drinking water, that really is concerning. And I think as what Milord have said, like the government also has a role to play in that. And it really is something that we should look about and talk about. Anyway, global context aside, let's move on to a more familiar setting or a familiar context, a familiar place. Let's talk about Philippine context now, locally, nationally. Let's first start with you, Ange. What can you say about it locally, SDG number 6, or just clean water and sanitation in general?
Well, here in the Philippines, clean water and sanitation is also a significant issue. According to a source, which is the Philippine Statistics Authority, only 91.3% of households here in the Philippines have access to improved water sources, and 74.4% of households have access to improved sanitation facilities.
Really?
So there's about like a 20% gap between the two, even though they correlate with each other.
Yeah.
Big gap,
Like
right? Yeah.
that's what I've also saw. You see, improved water sources and improved sanitation facilities is different, right? Even
Yeah,
that's different. That's different.
what does that mean? Like
Like if you think about it, why
the
does
implications.
I think if you think about it, why is it improved? So it means there has already been a first one, but it is not enough. And at that point, that's already alarming because the government has tried. There's already been something that has been done. Yeah, what can you say more about this? About the Philippine context of clean water and sanitation and water sources?
So for me, it's actually quite sad to hear that our country, the Philippines, and our fellow Filipinos are experiencing these types of problems. But that's really the harsh reality. The lack of clean water and proper sanitation facilities can also lead to many problems for these areas in our country. Issues regarding health and the environment is also concerning.
That's really
Especially
true.
in Marawi, we really feel bad for them as the aftermath effects of the Marawi siege has not yet subsided, and it also has affected them and devastated them.
Right,
That
right,
makes
right.
sense when it comes to the sanitation part, right?
True.
Yeah.
That really is true, and especially in Marawi, that's really sad to hear. Right? Like how long ago did Marawi siege happen? Like it was 5 years ago, right? 2017, and the effects have not
Five,
yet
So,
six,
That was
subsided.
yeah.
5 years
Right?
ago.
Yeah, that was 5 years ago. The effects
No
have not
longer.
been yet the effects have not yet subsided. Like, it really is sad to hear that our fellow Filipinos are experiencing these problems, and especially here locally, nationally, that really is sad that you know there's a lack of water sources. and clean water, and especially sanitation facilities, especially to our
Yeah.
fellow Filipinos. And that really is sad to hear. And I guess, you know, with the bad things, there's also positive things. I have some good news for you guys. The ILO, or International Labor Organization, with the help of the government of Japan, they have provided uh, new and effective water sanitation facilities to different parts of I think it was in Lanao del Sur in Maguindanao and in Cotabato area in Bangsamoro, in some special areas as well, with almost I think 3,000 households being given access to clean water and sanitation, which is a good thing to hear, despite that Marawi and our fellow Muslim brothers and Maranao sisters and brothers are affected still. But it is good to hear that even other countries are concerned for us in our country, and we are also doing something about it. And at least if there's bad in the world, there's also good in it. So going to positive things next, we've talked about the global context and the Philippine context of clean water and sanitation and SDG number 6. As per these problems that we've talked about, Milord and Ibn, like, what are some solutions that you've thought about, or even our three guests, like, have you guys thought about like solutions to these problems, and what are they? Can you expound on them?
Maybe Ibn wants to say something.
I believe that if people would just stop thinking about their political advances, perhaps we would get progress into actually solving this problem. But that is a pretty high expectations. That's a pretty high expectation to politicians who are not very trustworthy,
True.
especially in a third world country like ours. So the
I
best we
agree.
could hope for is to help one another, to help the people, people helping other people, because those are the ones we can rely on, those who also struggles with these problems. They know the most how hard it is. Yeah. Do you guys want to
Amen.
add
You know,
anything?
amen to that. I
Um,
totally agree with that. Right, right, my lord. Like right,
yeah.
Ange. Like right, Bea. Like those are
To add on what
you know
Ibn
true.
said, yeah, people shouldn't rely like much to the government. They should also take action themselves, start by self-discipline, and participate in different non-profit organizations or programs to help those people who don't have access to clean water and sanitation, especially here in the city, Davao City,
Yeah,
and Mindanao as a
Mindanao.
whole.
Mindanao. I agree with that, and I like your guys' idea that coming together as one, and um standing, not really standing for themselves, but working together to improve our own situation. And despite us being privileged and being blessed with things like water, like, it is really good to hear that one of the best solutions is to help them come together and solve these problems within ourselves and not rely on government and organizations. I really like that. I really like your points, and I think it really is very impactful. Before we wrap up this podcast, I have some few words to say. That in conclusion, this podcast, we've talked about global context and the Philippine context of SDG number 6, clean water and sanitation. We've talked about what the problems are, what the good and the bad are, and what are the solutions, and what are the things that can be done for it. What are some last words of advice that my co-hosts and my fellow guests can say? So we can probably start with Ibn. What can you say?
What can I say? Appreciate what you have, as we have stated before. Not everyone has access to water, and be kind.
Amen. I like that. Truer words have never been said before. Milord, what can you say?
For me, we should spread awareness when it comes to clean water and sanitation. And maybe, you can share this podcast to other people or share posts on social media, like posters maybe, to help them become more aware
Oh,
of the
I agree.
situation. not only here in the country but also globally.
I agree. Like what we are doing right now, right? Like in our podcast, like we are spreading awareness, and that is one of our jobs and goals here today. Thank you for that, my lord. Now let's move on to our guest. Let's start with Ange. What are some last few words of advice or some things you want to say before we end this podcast?
I would just like to say that as people, as a community, we should all be united and work together as people to be one with another to fight for our rights to solve issues
Agree.
regarding the clean water and sanitation that is prevalent today.
All right. Thank you for that output, Ange. And Resha, what words can you say, or what last few words can you say for
I'm very thankful to be part of this podcast about clean water and sanitation. That's all.
lastly, last but not least, Bea, what can some last few words of advice you can say? What can you say?
So, first thing I have to say is I'm very thankful for all of you for having us as a guest. And this discourse has really made me appreciate what I have. And I hope the audience of this podcast would also appreciate what we have more and be grateful for what they have that others don't. And as a community, we should help each other if we want to see a change,
Agree.
especially in clean water and sanitation.
Agree.
That's all.
Thank you so much, Bea. Thank you so much, everyone, for your wonderful outputs and ideas. And I'm pretty sure we have made an awareness. We have helped people be much more aware and be much open about clean water and why it really is an important issue here in our real life situation, and not only in the Philippines but also in the global context. We hope that your eyes and your mind and your heart have been more open regarding clean water and why it really is important for us to take a stand and be more aware about it. And before we end this podcast, I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Hopefully, you've been more aware. And we are Aquamunda Productions, Group 3 of 11 Old Corn, signing off. Thank you so much for your time, for your listening, and bye, guys. Peace out.